My FIL gave us a gift for our wedding, a house deed with fine print tying it to their family trust. It's still technically ours, he said. I smiled and said thank you. Then I used a loophole to transfer it into a new LLC with my name. 2 years later, when he tried to reclaim it during probate, I simply slid over the documents. This was never your house, I said. It was your lesson. So yeah, I married into a family that looked great on the outside but treated people like pawns. My name's Derek. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. My parents were working class, the kind of people who paid their bills on time and never asked for anything. I didn't grow up with a lot, but I learned early how to work hard and think ahead. I got into property management after college. Nothing fancy, just steady. I like rules. I like paperwork. And I like knowing where I stand with people. My wife Maggie, she's everything to me. We met at a 4th of July party 6 years ago. I knew right away she wasn't like her parents. She's quiet but sharp, kind but nobody's pushover. The kind of person who apologizes when she's wrong and expects others to do the same. Her dad, Ron, never apologized. Ron was a lawyer, had his own practice, dressed like he was trying to impress a judge even on Sundays. He talked like a man who wanted to be feared more than liked. His wife, June, just nodded along with whatever he said. They weren't bad people, not on the surface. They did things that looked generous. They just made sure you knew they were doing you a favor. When Maggie and I got engaged, Ron didn't say congratulations right away. He just stared at me across his kitchen island and asked what I earned. Not how I felt about his daughter. Not if I planned to make her happy. Just what I brought to the table. I should have known then. At our wedding, Ron gave a toast. It was the kind of speech where he made jokes about how expensive daughters are. Everyone laughed politely. Then he brought out a sealed envelope and handed it to us in front of everyone. This, he said, holding it like a game show prize, is the deed to your new home. The crowd clapped. Maggie cried. I kept my smile steady. After the toast, Ron leaned in to whisper. It's tied to the family trust. Just for protection. Still yours to enjoy. You know, ours, technically. That word. Ours. I stayed polite. I shook his hand. I thanked him. Then I went home, opened that envelope, and read every single word of that deed. He gifted us the house, sure. But there were clauses, sneaky ones. The property was technically under the Ron E. Harwell Family Trust. He had the right to reclaim the asset in the event of major familial dispute or estate dissolution. It sounded harmless. It was meant to sound harmless. But I knew better. I work in property. I've seen people lose everything over one missed detail. I wasn't about to be one of them. So I started digging. Quietly. Turns out there was a small line in the deed's legalese that gave the current occupant certain rights if improvements were made without reimbursement from the trust. It was vague, probably meant to sound like a formality. But it gave me an idea. Over the next year, I renovated the house. Nothing flashy. Just enough. New roof. Upgraded electrical. A reinforced basement wall. I logged every receipt. Filed everything. Then I set up an LLC DNM Property Holdings. And through a legal twist, I sold the improvements and therefore partial interest in the structure to my LLC. Just the improvements. Not the land. That split the legal tie in a way the trust didn't account for. A year later, I bought out the remaining interest from myself. It was messy on paper but airtight legally. The house was now owned fully by my LLC. 2 years later, Ron had a heart attack. During probate, Maggie and I showed up with the other family members. June looked lost. Maggie tried to help where she could. I kept quiet. Then his estate lawyer started talking about the house. Said it needed to revert to the trust per the clause in the deed. I didn't flinch. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. I slid it across the table. Inside was the chain of ownership. The paperwork showing how the house had been legally transferred through loopholes Ron himself had left open. The lawyer flipped through it. His face went pale. June didn't say a word. Maggie just looked at me. Then I said it clear as I could, this was never your house. It was your lesson. After that day, I figured it was done. I didn't expect anyone to thank me, but I thought they'd leave us alone. I was wrong. 2 weeks after probate, Maggie got a call from her brother, Lucas. He's younger than her by 5 years, always in and out of jobs, living off handouts from Ron. He was furious. You stole from us, he said. Maggie put him on speaker. I listened in silence. That house was Dad's legacy, Lucas yelled. You tricked him. You took it. Maggie tried to stay calm. He gave it to us for our wedding. You know that. He gave it as part of the trust. It wasn't just for you. It was for the family. You're just married to Derek. You don't get to own everything. That was the first real shot across the bow. Then the letters started. Certified mail. One from June's new attorney claiming I had acted in bad faith. That I manipulated an elderly man. That I abused my position as a son-in-law. Thing is, I'd been expecting it. I had documents. Witness statements from contractors. A paper trail showing the timeline of every improvement, every filing, every single penny spent out of our personal account. I sent back copies through my lawyer. Not once did we breach the deed. We just worked the gaps. Then June showed up at the house. It was a Wednesday morning. Maggie was at work. I was on a Zoom call when I saw her standing at the front door through the Ring camera. I stepped outside. She looked tired. Not in the sad way. In the bitter, worn-down kind of way. She stared at the siding, the new gutters, the painted door. You planned this, she said. I didn't deny it. Ron was trying to protect his legacy. He was trying to control Maggie, I said. Even from the grave. She didn't argue. Just said, you ruined this family. I looked at her. Really looked at her. No, Ron did that. I just made sure he didn't take us down with him. She left without another word. But things didn't die down. Lucas filed a civil suit 3 months later. Claimed undue influence. Said I manipulated Ron when he was vulnerable. Tried to drag my name through the mud. Even brought up old college roommates to say I'd always been calculating. They didn't realize I'd kept records for everything. And my lawyer was better than theirs. But here's the twist. One day, Maggie found something in a shoebox in the back of her parents' closet. Old financial records, and a handwritten note. It was Ron's, and it wasn't just about the house. The note was folded between faded tax returns and copies of old wills. Maggie found it in a shoebox marked Spring 2001, stuffed behind dusty Christmas decorations in her mom's attic. We wouldn't have even gone up there if she hadn't been looking for childhood photos to show our daughter. The handwriting was unmistakably Ron's, tight, slanted to the right, like every word was in a rush. It read, if things go wrong, the house in Indian Hill should go to Maggie, not the trust. June doesn't understand real estate. Lucas won't make it. Maggie's the only one who could hold it. Deed can't reflect this, too much legal risk. But if she's smart, she'll figure it out. We stared at the note in silence. It was dated 5 years before our wedding. Ron knew. He knew his trust could backfire. He just didn't want to admit it out loud. He wanted the control, but also a backup plan. One he never told anyone about, not even Maggie. It should have changed everything. But it didn't. We brought the note to the lawyer handling the lawsuit. He said it wasn't legally binding. Too vague, too informal. Good for a story, not a courtroom. Lucas didn't care. He doubled down. He started digging into my past. Claimed I had insider knowledge of real estate loopholes and used them for fraud. He tried to subpoena my business records. Even sent a letter to one of my contractors asking if I'd ever pressured him to falsify a renovation date. Then one night, our daughter woke up crying. Said someone had been knocking on her window. We checked the cameras. Black SUV. Couldn't see the plates. I called the police. Filed a report. Nothing came of it. But Maggie looked at me and said, we need to end this. I agreed. But not the way she meant. I started my own digging. And I found out something about Lucas. He'd been taking cash from the trust for years. Little payments labeled consulting even though he hadn't held a steady job since 2017. Ron had kept it quiet, probably ashamed. Maybe trying to fix his son by paying him off. But now that Ron was gone, the payments had stopped. Lucas wasn't mad about the house. He was scared. Desperate. Probably broke. I handed the documents to my lawyer. But before we could file anything, Lucas made a move I didn't see coming. He broke into our old storage unit. The one where I kept boxes from our first apartment. My office backups. Even some paper trails from when I'd first started the LLC. And he stole files. Only he didn't realize one box had a GPS tracker. I called the cops. But I didn't stop there. I followed the GPS ping from the tracker to a cheap rental storage unit across town, some rundown place off Route 50, barely monitored, just a keypad gate and a few dusty cameras. I didn't go in right away. I waited in my car across the street and called the police. When they arrived, I handed them the paperwork, the tracker proof, the missing documents list, the camera footage from the unit we rented. It was enough. Inside the unit, they found the boxes. Lucas had broken them open, looking for something he could use. He'd circled things in red pen, highlighted parts of contracts. But he didn't understand half of what he was reading. They arrested him for theft and unlawful entry. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. At the hearing, Lucas's attorney made one last play. Claimed I manipulated Ron, exploited a grieving, aging man, and used legal tricks to take the house. Said Maggie and I had conspired to steal from the trust. And that's when Maggie stood up. She asked the judge if she could speak. She told the story, her story. How her father had used money to control people. How he tried to dress manipulation as protection. She told them about the note she found, Ron's own words. She said, he didn't trust my brother. He barely trusted me. But he gave us this house with conditions because that's who he was. My husband didn't trick him. He saved us from a man who never gave anything without expecting to pull the strings. The courtroom was silent. Even the judge just nodded slowly. The lawsuit was dismissed. Lucas was hit with fines and a restraining order. But it didn't feel like a win. Maggie was different after that. She stopped talking to her mother. Didn't even go to Christmas. June sent cards but never called. The family fractured and never came back together. We kept the house, but we moved out 2 years later. Too many memories. Too much history in the walls. Before we left, I stood alone in the living room one last time. I thought about everything, Ron's games, the lawsuits, Lucas breaking into our life. And I thought about what I did. I had planned it. I had used the loopholes. I didn't manipulate Ron. But I didn't tell him either. I saw the opportunity and took it. Because I knew people like him. I knew they never give anything without a hook. So I built scissors. And I cut the line. Before I left, I taped a copy of the original deed and the LLC transfer paperwork to the inside of the kitchen cabinet. Just in case anyone ever came looking. On it I wrote, you thought this house was your legacy. It wasn't. It was your leash. And I broke it. We never heard from Lucas again. But sometimes late at night when I hear a knock at the door, I still wonder. Not if I did the right thing, but if Maggie ever forgave me for doing it my way. Because revenge doesn't always feel like justice. Sometimes it just feels like silence.